Good evening, America. Thank you. Oh, Karen Sue. If you would like to be a guest, email me, rabbiblock@hotmail.com, and we can arrange to do the show together next Wednesday night. We'll meet in my Zoom room to discuss questions and how we relate to each other. I would love to have you as a guest next week, so please definitely email me. And that applies to you, Jordan, and anyone else that would like to, I don't know if the word is co-host or do the show together or be a panel of 3 or 4 people. Everyone is always welcome. However, it's not reasonable just to click on invite without us meeting beforehand to decide how we're going to talk to each other and what subjects we would like to cover. So please, rabbiblock@hotmail.com. My podcast last Sunday and my YouTube, and I want to state again for the record, Israel has taken the final step towards annexing the West Bank. And the next step will be the formal annex. And whether it's in 1 month, 2 months, a week, it's coming. The timing isn't as important as Israel has taken the preliminary step. And you can look up the law and the rules about owning the land and Israel's claim to the land. But what they did was Israel took over ownership of all the land in the West Bank and nullified all the previous landowner agreements and purchases. So now Israel actually owns the land. So I did want that to go public and say that that's a bad idea, Israel. Expansionist, getting more territory, and it's not about security, and it's not about any of the other things Israel's saying. It's once more a colonial form of aggrandizement that countries seem to fall for to create empires, and historically, every empire that has done that has fallen. And so, questions for this evening. What do you want to know about Judaism, philosophy, theology? And that's the purpose of my live on TikTok, is to answer questions and what you're curious about, and not necessarily for me to give a speech but I certainly can. Remember, I did the 613 commandments. I talked about make America good again. So I've picked topics. So that's not a problem. I would really like to address what you are thinking about, what you're curious about, and what you've always wanted to know. So please type in your questions so that I can address them. Judaism does not have a hierarchy like the Roman Catholic Church and the Episcopal Church, the Anglican Church, and even a lot of the other Protestant denominations do have some kind of a hierarchy, a council, a synod, an organization that determines policy, what churches can promote, what people believe. We have nothing like that in Judaism. No, I'm not Orthodox. Judaism breaks off into traditional or Orthodox and non-Orthodox Judaism. And within non-Orthodox Judaism, we have Reform, Conservative, Reconstructionist, Renewal, many organizations that fall into the non-Orthodox category. Now, the position of the Talmud is rabbinic discussion of the Mishnah. It's not laws. There's no Jewish police, there's no courts, there's no one that requires me to follow Talmud. And there's no punishment. The Talmud is teachings. Okay? And somehow it's gotten out there that the Talmud is Jewish law. In fact, the word for Jewish law, halakha, means the way or path. And that's also a kind of a misnomer. And it's unfortunate that we called halakha Jewish law instead of the way or the path. In Islam, Sharia means path or way. It's not law. The Buddha called it the Eightfold Path. The Red Road is a path. Do you believe Gentiles have been grafted into the Abraham tree? Yeah, the God in all God's wisdom created many paths to the one. And so too often we promote one as better, one is the only way, and it's just not true. It seems that we have some Talmudic scholars out there, so please, I would like you to join me and offer a class on those passages from the Talmud that you want to discuss. I'm open. So rather than asking me the question, email me and let's have a class on the Talmudic passages that you want to talk about. I'm open. Certainly. But this forum doesn't lend itself to any real discussion. I can answer questions, but in terms of background or quoting documents or putting things on the screen, so you and I would have to prepare for that. So those of you that have Talmudic questions, please get in touch with me and we'll have a show about it. Yeah, the Kazirs. There have been many branches in Judaism that didn't survive, didn't stand the test of time, if you will. Doesn't mean they were wrong or bad. It's just they didn't last. Maybe things will come back again. Maybe they won't. But again, I'd like to emphasize that none of these things invalidate religion or Judaism. Christianity can be successful, and so can Judaism be successful. The success of a religion doesn't depend on degrading or putting down another religion. And too often, we do that. Too often, we hinge our success. We think that we're only successful if another religion isn't, or we can put it down. And I really find some of the things I hear and see very ungodly, unreligious. Rather than promoting a religion, I hear a lot of our pastors and religious leaders will condemn other groups or other religions, as if that makes theirs more valid or better. Just stop that. Instead of telling me why others are wrong or incorrect, promote yours. Show me or tell me why your beliefs are good or valid. Let's have some discussion, rather than condemning or attacking as if that elevates your position. I'm a Bostonian. I'm second-generation American. My family migrated from Globoki in Belarusia. And thank you for asking where my family is from. It's a really curious question. We have no idea why my grandparents left Russia, but most of the family did not, and they were murdered by Hitler. They were put in the ovens and the gas chambers and killed for no other reason than being Jewish. The question I always I ask myself is, for Jake and Sarah and Moses, Moshe, and the few grandparents that said things here are unacceptable, we're going to America. But other cousins didn't go, other families didn't go. I don't know what they saw and why they decided, but they did, because if they hadn't, I wouldn't be here. My parents wouldn't be here. So remember, I'm second generation. And that's kind of a curious. Would you be considered Ashkenazic or Semitic? I'm Semitic. I'm Hebrew. I trace my ancestry back to the Hebrew people. And in their journey, they went through Russia and came to America. But my family was not Russian, was not indigenous to Russia, and I had my genes tested. My family was Semitic and took a journey. Generations, and that's how they came here. And we don't want to get into discussion of the validity of Israel, the validity of Palestine, the validity of Jordan. What we want to focus on is these countries exist, will exist, and there are some problems going on. How do we solve what's going on? And I want to remind everyone out there an expression my grandmother used to use. My grandmother used to say, whenever I would say, oh, if this, if that, if, as if to explain something, she would look and say in Yiddish, if I had what your grandfather had, I wouldn't be a grandmother, I'd be a grandfather. Stop with the ifs, and let's focus on what is. Now, do I practice Talmudic law? Let me say again, the Talmud is not law. It's rabbinic commentary, and it presents both the minority and majority opinion. You can read both arguments. There's no conclusion. It doesn't tell us what to do. It's education. It's a document. Now, when you look at it, you have to decide, do the arguments make sense? Are they valid? Which side do you come down on? And they give both the majority, minority opinion, and all the ancillary discussion. The Talmud is not law. It's not legally binding. The covenant of Abraham, the covenant with King David, the covenant with Moses, out of a little order there. These are arrangements with God, covenants, deals, contracts. The Talmud isn't a contract. It's not a covenant. It's rabbinic discussion as a Christian. We're all God's children. And to differentiate Christian, Goy, Gentile, people use those terms, certainly. However, let's push back and say there are many ways to understand the one. Where do you see yourself in the sequence? I see all of us as there. No one inferior, no one superior. What do you think about Jews? And yeah, it's a neat question, because European Jews and Israelis have a way of disregarding other Jews on our planet. And I think it's a very sad comment on my co-religionists that they don't recognize or won't support or won't help all Jews. This part of human nature is my group is good, your group isn't, I have the right way, you have the wrong way. It's time that we rise above those distinctions and realize what you mean by Israeli considered Israel only. Again, to put a timeline in, if anyone would like, we certainly can trace the geography, the history of what was the land of the Philistines, the land of Canaan, how it came under Roman protectorate and Roman occupation, and the idea of Palestine meaning Philistine, and we can trace it. However, that's going to distract us. That's defocusing. The reality is Israel is here. It's a legitimate country. It's going to be around. Egypt is a country. Jordan is a country. Iran is a country. There are displaced people that would like to have a homeland. They want to call it Palestine. Now we have to sit down and say, how do we make this real? It's not really helpful to go back in time and try to legitimize behavior by saying we were here first. If you want, all of us have to leave North America because we're European. America was inhabited by tribes, by people. It's not helpful. It just defocuses us and prevents us from finding a solution of how do we all have countries. Look at Russia wanting to claim Ukraine as part of this. And don't be mistaken. If Russia gets away with getting part of Ukraine, they're going to do what Hitler did. They're going to move on. They're going to keep taking territories. They're going to go after what are now former Soviet countries. They're going to take them over again and make them part of Russia. Make no mistake. It's important to draw a line now and stop Russia from taking Ukraine before they begin to keep taking. Now, why do you call us Goyim? The Goy Gadol is a reference to Israel, a great nation. The word Goy means nation or people. So if you take it out of context, it gets really bizarre and weird. But I'm referring to, in Hebrew itself, God said, I'm going to make you a Goy Gadol, a great nation. So the word Goy means nation, nothing to do with Jew or non-Jew. However, people have used it and abused it, and in colloquial language. So let's not fall for that. Let's not use it. Let's not try to put Jews down by using our own term, Goy Gadol. That refers to Israel. There's your word. I'm not a big fan of Netanyahu. Netanyahu is a politician. And I think a lot of his policies and what he's doing are not good for the state of Israel and for Jews. Not a big fan of Netanyahu. So, but I'm an American citizen. I don't vote in Israeli elections. And we certainly can quote scripture, and God will bless those who bless you, and those who don't will be cursed. I mean, that's the expression in Genesis. I was born in Boston, by the way. Someone asked where I was born. I'm a Bostonian, which makes me a Red Sox fan, a Celtics fan, a Bruins fan, and a Patriots fan. I'm a Bostonian. And when we're looking at God blessing Israel, God blessing the people, there's a message here about how we treat each other. I'm an American. I'm not an Israeli. It's a funny question to ask me. I did go to Israel as an immigrant in 69, 70. And I chose to return. I did not accept Israeli citizenship. Okay? So I'm an American. And we want to take a look at the passages because Israel in the Torah and in the Tanakh and Hebrew scripture becomes symbolic of how you treat people. So when it says, if you bless Israel or curse Israel, you read into it, you're talking about people. God is using that as a metaphor, as an example. How you treat the least among you is very important. And then there is the lesson for all of us. How do we treat each other? I keep moving because the text, remember, is in white. And that's why I wear black all the time. And I can read it when it's at the very bottom, but as it scrolls up, it becomes harder to read, particularly in my white beard. I'm reading some of the things people are writing. Sarah, Emily, email me and you'll be my co-host or guest next Wednesday night. I just want to add, so far, everyone that has printed invite me, when I've offered to let them co-host and be with me, no one has taken me up on my offer. And I think that's very sad. Because if you're serious, you would email me and then you would be on tonight's show with me. I think that's very sad. My grandfather is older. So am I. I'm 80. Weird, isn't it? Invite to what? To be co-host or to appear with me on the show, to be my guest. That's what I'm inviting people to. Not a problem. I do not deny Moses or Jesus prophets. I consider both Jesus and Muhammad to be prophets. I also think of Martin Luther King as a prophet, Kennedy as a prophet, Menachem Begin, Anwar Sadat. I don't think prophecy died or stopped with Hebrew scripture. God sends us, God addresses people to teach us his rules and laws on a much larger platform than mine on TikTok. So the idea of prophecy is not gone. It takes on different levels, different individuals. But Muhammad brought to the world teachings for the Arabian people, for the peninsula, and his idea of Sharia, which means the path, not law, a way for people of a certain culture to understand Allah. Keep in mind that individuals give God names based on their familiarity, based on culture. It's all about culture. But that doesn't change the teaching. That doesn't change what might be truth. Remember what I always teach. The scriptures are truth and they're not true. We don't want to get bogged down in taking them literally. We don't want to get bogged down in stories. And remember, Jesus himself said, I speak to you in metaphors. I come to teach you in allegory. I come to teach you in stories. Jesus said that in the Gospels. He was a preacher. And so we don't want to look at the metaphor. We want to look at the truth. Okay? And not get bogged down in whether there was an ark or not. Not true. Okay? So we want to look at Muhammad. We want to look at Jesus. We want to look at their teachings and see the truths in their teachings. And not ask questions that divide, not try to split, and not to degrade people because we don't know enough about them or we don't accept their teachings. There's nothing wrong with saying, I follow the teachings of. You don't have to put someone else down to validate your teaching. And that's my point tonight. Too often, we want to elevate ourselves by putting others down. We want to show our religion is better by condemning other religions. Don't do that. Just show the value of your religion, the value of your teachers. And to learn from each other. I know a lot about Christianity. I'm not a Christian. I know a lot about Islam. I'm not Hindu. I know a lot about Hinduism. I know a lot about Buddhism. But I am a Jew boo. Okay, that snuck in there. All right. And I think that's an important lesson for this evening. I think that's what we have to walk away with. Not to put down another religion to elevate our own. Let your religion stand on its values. on its teachings, on its truth. We can have followers of all religions. It's all valid. And now a word from our sponsor. Many of your questions will be answered if you buy my book. Available at Barnes & Noble online, Amazon online, or any bookstore where good books are sold. And as I've mentioned before, the cartoons alone are worth the price of the book. There you go. And if you're going to tell me that the only way to salvation, the only way to heaven is your religion, you've just missed the whole point of God's basic teaching. God has many paths, many avenues, many ways. And yours is valid. I'm not going to invalid or I'm not going to say to you, your religion is wrong, or you're going to a place because you don't agree with me. Now, you certainly can believe that. You certainly can believe that your way is the only way. Only way. Bukasha. Please. You're entitled. That's fine. We're coming down to the end of our time. Have a couple more time for questions. Private Party says, a living God of Israel. There is the one. How do you become a rabbi? There are many different ways to become a rabbi, depending on whether you want to be Orthodox, non-Orthodox, when you want to be recognized by a legitimate organization. According to Jewish law, I can ordain a rabbi. Now, if I would ordain you as a rabbi, what would be your credentials? How would you go out in the world? Therefore, we have seminaries and rabbinic institutions that have a curriculum, a study, and a reputation. And so one goes to rabbinic seminaries, one goes to colleges to have the credentials and to have the background and the organization, so that when people see, oh, you went to Boston College, you have an undergraduate degree, oh, you went to Hebrew Union College, you were ordained a rabbi, that lends a certain validity and responsibility. Where if I were to ordain you, people would say, Rabbi Block? They wouldn't know. There's no institution, there's no backing. That's one of the oddities about becoming a rabbi in Judaism. One certainly can get a rabbi to ordain you. The problem would be credibility and how you would be viewed in the external world. And that's the answer to the question of how do you become a rabbi. It's kind of you're a teacher. The word rabbi means teacher. So you're ordained to teach, to carry on a tradition. We have no sacraments in Judaism. Okay, time is up. Thank you all for watching and participating.